What happens when two powerhouse divas collide over respect, legacy, and who truly runs the music game? You're about to witness sparks fly in one of the most jaw-dropping daytime TV moments ever. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Tell me right now who you think was in the right, because this drama is unreal. The Jennifer Hudson show was running smoothly that afternoon. The crowd buzzed with excitement, the energy crackling like electricity in the air. Everyone was hyped, waiting for one of the most legendary voices alive to step out. Chaka Khan, the Queen of Funk herself. She was there to promote her brand new memoir and share stories from her decades of dominance in the industry, an artist who paved the way for icons like Jennifer Hudson herself. But behind the cameras, the vibe wasn't all smiles. Insiders revealed that Chaka arrived with very clear rules. She wanted the spotlight on her book and upcoming tours. No digging into old personal drama she'd been forced to relive in past interviews. And let's just say, when a legend lays down the law, you better believe it. Producers nodded along, reassuring her team they'd stick to the script. Meanwhile, Jennifer Hudson strutted onto the set in a dazzling emerald dress that shimmered under the lights. Her energy filled the room instantly, and the audience erupted in applause as she took her seat behind the desk. Jennifer had been counting down to this moment for weeks. This wasn't just another guest. This was Chaka Khan, one of her ultimate inspirations. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the incomparable, the legendary, the one and only Queen of Funk, Chaka Khan, Jennifer announced with pure excitement. The crowd leapt to their feet, cheering as Chaka glided in, wearing a sleek black outfit and dripping in statement jewelry that gleamed under the studio lights like fire. She moved with the grace of royalty, every step radiating the confidence of a woman who had owned stages for over 50 years. Her trademark smile shone brightly, but if you looked closely, there was a flicker of tightness in her posture, as if she was already bracing for something. The two women embraced, and for a split second, it felt like pure harmony. But that peace wouldn't last long. As the applause faded, Jennifer leaned forward with her warmest smile. "Chaka, it is such an honor to have you here. I've been a fan since I was a little girl, and your voice has inspired my entire career," she gushed, her words overflowing with admiration. "Thank you, sweetheart," Chaka replied smoothly, though her tone carried a subtle edge, as if her words were carefully measured rather than freely flowing. Jennifer pressed on, her energy lighting up the room. "Now, I know you have this beautiful memoir coming out, and I can't wait to dig into it. But first, I've got to ask, because I know our audience is dying to hear, what was it like working with some of the biggest names in music history? I mean, you've collaborated with legends from Stevie Wonder to Prince." The camera zoomed in as Chaka adjusted in her chair, her poised smile steady. "Well, Jennifer, those experiences were incredible," she said, her voice calm but confident. "I dive deep into those stories in my book, the late-night sessions, the creative sparks, the friendships, even the chaos. It's all in there." Jennifer nodded eagerly, her eyes gleaming. "That's amazing. And we'll definitely get into the book. But our viewers are curious about the untold moments. Like, what was Prince really like in the studio?" The air shifted. Chaka paused just a fraction too long, enough to make the audience lean forward. Then, in a deliberate tone, she finally said, "Prince was a genius, a perfectionist, and someone I respected immensely. As I said, the book really captures those moments in a way that gives them the respect they deserve." Her firmness was undeniable. Jennifer seemed to notice the change in energy, but she pressed on, determined to guide the interview. Of course. And speaking of legends, I have to ask about your relationship with Whitney Houston. I know you two were close, and her passing was such a heartbreak for all of us in the music world. That's when it happened." Chaka's jaw tightened, just barely, but enough for anyone paying close attention to catch it. "Whitney was like a daughter to me," she said, her tone suddenly heavy. "Losing her was devastating. It's still difficult to talk about, which is why I prefer to let my written words speak on that relationship. Jennifer softened her voice but didn't back off. I completely understand, and I don't want to bring up any pain. But I think it would be so powerful for our audience to hear about the Whitney you knew personally. The woman behind the voice that touched millions. The tension in the studio became undeniable, though the cheering audience remained oblivious. Chaka inhaled deeply, her fingers tapping once against the armrest like a warning. "Jennifer, I appreciate your curiosity. I really do," she replied carefully. "But I thought we agreed this conversation would highlight my memoir and my current projects. These are deeply personal losses, and I've chosen to tell them in my book, where I can give them the space and respect they deserve." For the first time that afternoon, Jennifer's smile cracked ever so slightly. She quickly nodded. "Of course, Chaka. I respect that. Let's shift gears then. Let's talk about your memoir. What inspired you to finally write your story now?" Chaka's shoulders eased, the first sign of real calm since she sat down. "After all these years in the industry, I felt it was time to set the record straight about my journey, my struggles, my triumphs, and the lessons I've carried. There are so many stories that have never been told, and I wanted them shared in my own words." "That's beautiful," Jennifer said, her curiosity genuine this time. "I'm sure there were plenty of moments where you had to fight, not just to be heard, but to be respected as more than a voice, as a true artist. Would you say that's something you had to push hard for?" "Absolutely," Chaka replied with a nod, her passion finally breaking through as she began to open up. "The music industry, especially when I was starting out, wasn't kind to women, especially women of color, who demanded creative control. I had to stand tall, demand respect, and refuse to compromise my vision for anyone." Jennifer leaned forward, her eyes lit with anticipation. "That's such an important message, especially for young artists watching right now. Can you share one specific moment where you had to take that stand?" Chaka paused, her eyes narrowing slightly as she weighed her words. "There were plenty of moments, Jennifer, but one that stands out was early in my solo career. I was working with a producer who tried to shove me into a box I didn't belong in. He wanted to change my sound, my style. He even suggested I change my name." Jennifer's jaw dropped. "Your name? But Chaka is iconic." "Exactly." Chaka snapped back with a sharp smile tugging at her lips. "I told him straight up, you can work with Chaka Khan as I am, or you can find somebody else to mold. But I'm not stripping away my essence for anyone." The audience erupted, clapping and cheering at her defiance. The tension seemed to ease, the conversation finally flowing smoothly again. Jennifer relaxed, smiling wide. "That's incredible. And clearly it paid off. Because look at the legacy you've built. Your voice is unmistakable, your style untouchable, and your name forever stamped in history." "Thank you," Chaka replied, this time her smile shining with genuine warmth. But just as the vibe steadied, Jennifer made a move that flipped the entire room upside down. Maybe she thought the timing was right. Maybe she believed she could slip it in gently. Jennifer leaned forward and said, "Chaka, I hope you don't mind me asking this. When you talk about demanding respect and standing tall, it reminds me of the personal struggles you've faced. I know you've been open about them before, and I think your journey of strength and recovery is so powerful. I believe it would really inspire our audience to hear it from you directly." The air froze instantly. It was as if the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees on the spot. Chaka's smile vanished, her entire expression turning to stone. The gentle drumming of her fingers against the chair stopped cold. She turned her head slowly and locked Jennifer with a glare so sharp it could cut glass. "Excuse me," Chaka said, her voice low and chilling, carrying more weight than any shout ever could. Jennifer, clearly missing the warning, pressed on nervously. "I just think your story of healing could help so many watching right now." Then it happened. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Deafening silence. The audience, who had been clapping and laughing just minutes before, now sat frozen. oblivious to the storm brewing right before their eyes. They didn't know exactly what was wrong, but the Queen of Funk's stare said it all. This interview was about to flip into uncharted territory. Chaka Khan, the woman who had faced down record labels and stared industry giants in the eye, was now pinning Jennifer Hudson with a look so sharp it could cut the air in half. "Jennifer," Chaka began, her voice low but weighted with the exhaustion of a woman who had spent her career fending off invasive questions. "I thought I made myself clear backstage about which topics I was willing to discuss today." Jennifer froze, squirming in her chair, suddenly aware she had crossed a boundary. Her smile faltered. "Chaka, I didn't mean to overstep. I just thought that sharing your story of overcoming challenges might help people watching who are dealing with similar struggles." "My story?" Chaka's brows shot up, her voice sharpening like a blade. She leaned in, her tone cold and commanding. "My story is not your content, Jennifer. My struggles, my battles, my recovery. Those are not bullet points for your show." The audience gasped quietly, the tension now undeniable. Even the cameramen exchanged nervous looks as the atmosphere turned electric. Off to the side, Jennifer's production crew shifted uneasily, whispering frantically as they tried to figure out how to handle a live meltdown unfolding in real time. Jennifer's voice trembled, though she tried to steady herself, slipping into defense mode. "I understand that, Chaka, and I respect your privacy completely. But you have spoken about some of these things in other interviews, so I thought maybe you'd be willing to share with our audience today." Chaka leaned forward, her eyes locked on Jennifer like a spotlight that refused to let her move. The smile was gone. The warmth was gone. What remained was fire. "Other interviews?" she asked, her voice dripping with challenge. "Tell me, Jennifer, which interviews are you referring to?" The crowd went dead silent. This wasn't just a slip. It was a showdown. "Exactly," Jennifer stammered, realizing with every word that she was sinking deeper into a hole she never intended to dig. "Well, I mean, over the years you've spoken about your journey, and I just thought—" "You thought what exactly?" Chaka cut in sharply, her voice rising as the room snapped to attention. "That because I've survived in this industry for 50 years, because I'm the legend you like to call me, that my personal life is fair game? That you can drag it out here to bump your ratings?" The accusation landed like a punch. Jennifer's face flushed red, and for the first time since the interview began, her discomfort hardened into anger. "Chaka, that's not what this is about at all. I have nothing but respect for you." "Respect?" Chaka let out a short, bitter laugh, her eyes blazing. "Is this what you call respect? Sitting backstage, promising to focus on my book and my music, and then ambushing me on your little daytime stage with the most painful parts of my life?" "It's not live, and I wasn't ambushing you," Jennifer shot back, her voice cracking as her frustration finally spilled over. "I was trying to have a real conversation with you, not just some polished promotional chat for a sales pitch." The audience froze, their cheers long gone. Nervous glances darted across the room. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a raw clash of egos, two powerhouse women going head-to-head in real time. "A real conversation?" Chaka's voice dripped with sarcasm as she leaned closer, her glare unrelenting. "Let me teach you something about real conversations, sweetheart. They're built on mutual respect and consent. When someone sets boundaries, a real conversation honors those boundaries." Jennifer's jaw tightened, her voice shook but held firm. "I understand boundaries, Chaka, but I also believe that sometimes, as artists, we carry a responsibility to share our experiences when they can help others." That was the breaking point. Chaka's tone thundered through the studio, her legendary presence filling every corner. "Don't you dare lecture me about my responsibilities as an artist. Don't you dare. I was fighting battles in this business before you were even born. I was tearing down walls, carving out space for women like you when you were still dreaming about having a stage to stand on. The crowd gasped, the air sizzling with electricity. This wasn't just an interview anymore. This was war. The words hung heavy in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Jennifer's eyes widened, her lips parting as if she might retreat. But then something snapped. A flash of fire blazed across her face. Instead of backing down, she met Chaka's energy head-on. And I'm grateful for that, Chaka. I really am. But that doesn't give you the right to treat me like I'm some amateur who doesn't know how to conduct an interview. Her voice rang with defiance, sending a ripple through the studio. I've been doing this for years. I know how to treat my guests with respect. Respect? Chaka suddenly pushed back her chair and stood, her presence towering over Jennifer. The audience gasped, some even covering their mouths in shock. You call ignoring my explicitly stated boundaries respect? You call dragging me into topics I told you to leave alone respect? Jennifer stayed seated, her back straight, chin high, refusing to be rattled. I call it trying to have an authentic conversation with a legendary artist, Jennifer shot back. I call it giving you the platform to inspire millions watching at home. Chaka's eyes narrowed, her voice slicing through the air like a blade. No, you call it exploiting my pain for ratings. That's your idea of respect. The studio's energy crackled, half the audience frozen, the other half leaning forward like they were ringside. Jennifer, you may have an Oscar, Chaka spat, venom dripping from every syllable. You may sit in this shiny talk show chair, but clearly you never learned the first thing about honoring your elders or the people who broke down doors so you could stand here at all. The Oscar jab struck a nerve. Jennifer's composure cracked. She shot to her feet, squaring off with Chaka across the coffee table that now felt like a boxing ring divider. My elders? Chaka, I've shown you nothing but admiration my entire career. But respect cuts both ways. And right now, you're being downright condescending. Condescending? Chaka roared, her voice booming across the studio. She jabbed a finger at Jennifer, daring her to move. You invite me on this stage under the guise of celebrating my work, then drag me into old wounds I told you were off limits, and I'm the one being condescending? That's not what happened, and you know it, Jennifer shot back, her voice rising to match Chaka's thunder. I asked about your journey, about experiences you've already shared publicly. Respectful questions? Chaka let out a bitter, cutting laugh. Jennifer, you wouldn't recognize respect if it slapped that golden Oscar right out of your hands. Gasps ripped through the crowd at the savage dig. You want to talk about my struggles? Fine. Chaka's eyes blazed, her tone a storm. Let's talk about how these new artists think their trophies and chart numbers give them the right to dismiss the legends who built the stage they're standing on. The audience sat frozen, mouths hanging open, unable to look away, like watching a car crash in slow motion. Behind the cameras, chaos reigned. Producers whispered frantically, torn between cutting to commercial or letting the meltdown play out for ratings. Jennifer's face flushed crimson, a storm of fury and humiliation. I never disrespected you, Chaka. Not once. From the very beginning, I've shown you nothing but admiration. Then you and I must have very different definitions of respect, Chaka hissed. Where I come from, when someone tells you to leave a subject alone, you leave it alone. You don't circle it, poke at it, pry at it, digging up pain just to feed your content. Jennifer's voice cracked, but she gripped the edge of her chair and pushed back. I wasn't digging. I was giving you the chance to help people. Your story, your journey of rebuilding yourself, that could inspire someone out there who's struggling right now. The word rebuilding carried a shadow. Recovery. It landed like a punch. Chaka's entire body stiffened, her posture rigid, her silence sharper than a scream. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, deadly quiet. The kind of quiet that makes every hair on your arm rise. Did you just say addiction on television? The words ripped through the studio like a thunderclap. Jennifer's eyes went wide, the horror of her slip washing over her. Chaka, Did you just throw that word out about me on your show? Chaka cut in, her voice rising with each syllable. After I told you, crystal clear, I would not discuss my personal struggles? I'm sorry, I didn't mean… Jennifer stammered. You didn't mean what? Chaka roared, stabbing the air with her finger. You didn't mean to violate my privacy? You didn't mean to exploit my pain for your daytime drama? You didn't mean to strip me of my dignity on national television? The audience gasped, some covering their mouths, others frozen in their seats. Even the crew was paralyzed, too stunned to intervene. This was no longer an interview. This was a public reckoning. Chaka, please, Jennifer pleaded, her voice breaking. Let me apologize properly. I made a mistake. A mistake? Chaka thundered, her voice shaking the walls. No, Jennifer. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose to bulldoze my boundaries. You chose to drag me into the very wounds I told you to leave closed. You chose your show, your ratings, your moment, over my humanity. The words cut like daggers. The confrontation had hit its boiling point, and everyone in the room knew something explosive was seconds away. Chaka Khan, the woman who had stared down record labels, battled industry titans, and never once backed away from a fight, stood tall, fury radiating off her like fire. Across from her, Jennifer Hudson, despite all her accolades, suddenly looked like the rookie, completely out of her depth. Chaka, please. Jennifer's voice cracked, slipping from defensive to pleading. Can we just take a moment to reset? I never meant for it to spiral like this. Chaka's face hardened, disappointment and rage swirling in her eyes. Reset? Jennifer, there is no reset for disrespect. Once you cross the line, you can't uncross it. Not here, not in front of millions. Jennifer's hands trembled as she clutched the desk like it could hold her together. Her voice shook with desperation. I know you're upset. You have every right to be upset. But please, we can work through this. We have to. The studio went dead silent. Everyone held their breath, bracing for the moment Chaka might walk out and leave Jennifer's show in ruins. We can edit out anything you're uncomfortable with, Jennifer blurted suddenly, her voice shaky, reaching for a lifeline. Edit it out? Chaka's laugh cut like glass, sharp and bitter. You really think this is about editing? That you can slice out the part where you violated me, patch it up and pretend it never happened? The audience was transfixed. Some, ignoring the no-phone policy, had their cameras raised, capturing what they knew would become viral history. Others sat frozen, eyes wide, unsure if they should even be witnessing something this raw, this ugly. That's not what I meant, Jennifer pleaded, her voice cracking. I meant we could have a real conversation about what just happened. We could address it properly. A real conversation? Chaka's eyebrows shot up, her tone dripping with scorn. Jennifer, you keep throwing that phrase around like you know what it means. But a real conversation starts with respect. It starts with listening. It starts when someone tells you their boundaries, and you honor them. On the sidelines, Jennifer's producer waved frantic hand signals, practically begging her to cool the fire. But it was useless. Chaka and Jennifer were locked in, so deep, so heated, it was like no one else in the studio existed. I was listening, Chaka, Jennifer snapped back, her face tightening. I heard every word. But I also thought maybe, in the moment, you might open up. You might share something that could actually make a difference for the people watching right now. Chaka's head snapped, her eyes blazing with fresh fire. So that's it? You thought you could manipulate me in the moment? Catch me off guard? Back me into a corner and trick me into spilling what I already told you I would not discuss? The word manipulate hit Jennifer like a slap. Her face drained pale, then flushed red as shame and anger collided. The audience gasped, realizing this wasn't just a clash anymore. It was a detonation. I would never try to manipulate you, Chaka, Jennifer pleaded, her voice trembling but still clinging to a thread of defiance. I have too much respect for you as an artist and as a person. Respect for me as a person? Chaka's tone was incredulous, sharp enough to slice through the air. Jennifer, if you truly respected me, you would have honored what I said before these cameras started rolling. You would have kept the focus on my book, my music, my tour. Instead, you turned this into a therapy session for your audience's entertainment. The words landed heavy. Jennifer's eyes darted around the studio, only now registering the hundreds of eyes locked on her, watching this nightmare unfold. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, quieter, but still edged with resistance. That's not fair, Chaka. I never meant this as entertainment. I truly believed your story could help people. My story? Chaka's voice rose, each syllable carrying the weight of fury. She stepped forward, closing the space between them, her presence swallowing the stage. Let me teach you something about my story, Jennifer. It's mine. Mine to tell, when I choose, how I choose, and to whom I choose. It is not yours to dig up. It is not yours to extract for daytime ratings. The power dynamic shifted instantly. Jennifer Hudson, the Oscar winner, the talk show host, the star, suddenly looked small, her posture shrinking beneath Chaka's righteous fire. Audience members whispered nervously, the discomfort spreading like wildfire, the tension unbearable. I understand that now, Jennifer whispered, her voice nearly breaking. I see I overstepped, and I'm genuinely sorry. You're sorry now? Chaka shot back, her tone ice-cold, granting no mercy. You're sorry now that you've been exposed on national television? You're sorry now that the whole world just watched you disrespect me? But where was that sorry when I sat right here and told you clearly, don't go there? Jennifer's eyes glistened with tears. Whether from embarrassment, frustration, or genuine regret, no one could tell. Her voice wavered. Chaka, I swear to you, I thought I was being respectful. I thought I was giving you the chance to inspire people. The audience held its breath, sensing the storm wasn't over. Chaka Khan still had more fire to unleash. An opportunity? Her voice boomed with authority, shaking the walls. Jennifer, I've been inspiring people for over 5 decades. I've shared my music, my passion, my soul with the world since before you were even a thought in your parents' minds. Don't you dare stand there and act like I need you to give me opportunities to inspire anyone. The reference to age and legacy hit like a slap. Jennifer's face crumpled, the sting of the words undeniable. I know your legacy, Chaka, she insisted, her voice breaking. I know everything you've accomplished. That's why I was so honored to have you here. Honored? Chaka snapped, shaking her head slowly, her jewelry flashing under the lights. If you were truly honored, you would have treated this interview with the respect it deserved. You would have honored my wishes. You would have kept your word instead of twisting this into content for your daytime drama. Jennifer wiped at her eyes, streaking her carefully crafted makeup. Her voice cracked, desperate. I don't know how to fix this, Chaka. I don't know how to make it right. You can't fix it, Chaka replied flatly, her words cutting like blades. Some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. Some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. The finality in her tone sent shivers through the entire room. Even the hardened crew, people who had weathered bloopers, meltdowns, and live disasters, had never seen a clash this raw, this personal, this unfiltered between 2 powerhouse women. So, what happens now? Jennifer whispered, her voice stripped bare. She sounded defeated, a shadow of the confident host who had started the segment. Chaka turned, her gaze sweeping over the silent crowd, the blinking cameras, the trembling crew. Then she locked her eyes back on Jennifer with a calmness more terrifying than her fury. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of a woman who had fought her entire life and refused to bow. What happens now, Jennifer, she said slowly, is that I leave. I leave because I will not sit on a stage that does not respect its guests. I leave because I will never allow anyone, no matter how big their name, no matter how shiny their trophies, to strip me of my dignity. The studio was silent. Even the sound techs froze, holding their breath as the Queen of Funk delivered her final blow. "I leave," Chaka declared, her voice steady, regal. "Because I have spent my entire career standing up for myself and for every artist who came after me. And I am not about to stop now." She paused, the air electric around her. "I leave," she said again, softer but even more powerful, "because sometimes walking away is the loudest statement you can make." Jennifer stood frozen, her face pale, her body stiff as Chaka calmly reached for her microphone. Her hand didn't tremble once, steady as stone despite the storm swirling around her. "Chaka, please," Jennifer pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. "Don't leave like this. Let's talk off camera. Let's figure out how to move forward." Chaka paused mid-motion, her gaze snapping back to Jennifer with a piercing stare that cut straight through her. "Jennifer, the time for talking was before you ignored everything I told you about my boundaries. The time for respect was when I sat in that chair, trusting you to honor our agreement." With calm precision, she slid the microphone off and placed it on the coffee table between them. Gently, deliberately, like a queen laying down her crown on her own terms. "I've been in this industry long enough to know when someone is trying to use me," she said, her voice firm. Even when they convince themselves their intentions are good. The audience sat in stunned silence, barely breathing, watching history unfold in real time. The Queen of Funk straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and began her slow, commanding walk toward the exit. Each click of her heels echoed like a drumbeat, pounding the weight of the moment into the room. Just before reaching the door, Chaka stopped. She turned, sweeping her gaze across the studio, not just at Jennifer, but at the crew, the audience, the cameras. "This is what happens," she declared, her voice rich with steel and dignity. "When you forget that legends are not props for your content. We are not here to be consumed. We are human beings, and we demand respect. And when that respect is denied, we reclaim our power by walking away." The silence that followed was absolute. The only sound was Chaka's heels fading as she disappeared behind the curtain, leaving Jennifer Hudson standing alone, shaken, and the audience forever changed by what they had just witnessed. And with that, Chaka made her exit, walking off the Jennifer Hudson show with the poise of a queen reclaiming her crown. Behind her, she left a studio frozen in shock, a host fighting back tears, and a moment destined to be replayed, dissected, and debated for years. Jennifer stood alone at center stage, her bright set suddenly feeling cold and heavy, the weight of what had just unfolded pressing down like a stone blanket. The audience didn't know what to do. Should they clap? Should they comfort her? Or should they sit quietly in the thick silence swallowing the room? The cameras never stopped rolling, capturing every second of the raw aftermath. This wasn't just another interview gone wrong. This was history, and Jennifer Hudson knew it. In front of hundreds of live witnesses, she had just faced one of the most humbling, career-defining moments of her life. And Chaka Khan, she didn't just walk away. She taught. She reminded everyone in that room and everyone watching at home what true respect and dignity look like. She proved to the world that legends don't bend, they don't break, and they never allow their stories to be twisted into someone else's script. So now I've got to ask you, what's your take on this explosive showdown? Was Chaka right to stand her ground and walk off? Or do you think Jennifer Hudson deserved a chance to make things right? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this moment will be talked about for years. And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends, and stay tuned for the next jaw-dropping celebrity story you won't believe actually happened.